Të ndiqni kryeministrin Rama në Jeruzalem është fjala në eventin për antisemitizmin.
Professor Judah Leib 10 years later, where it rests to these days. A few facts coming from this incredible 50-page report speak of the same model history of mutual honor and solidarity between Albanians and Jews. As Jewish publicist Nir Hassan wrote a few years ago in the Haaretz Daily, Albania is considered in these documents, written by Leo Ilton, a second additional homeland for Jews. In the meantime, a part of the European opinion was in panic, fearing that Albania was being assimilated by Jews. All this was happening while the government in Albania was under the control of fascist Rome. This is what, I quote, a coded text of an Italian informer wrote for Italian Foreign Ministry in 1936. Without meaning to cause alarm, I must say that Albanian sympathies for us will soon expire, and our place will be taken by the Jews. In September 1943, when the former Nazi ambassador to Belgrade, No Bayer, came to Tirana to meet the four representatives of the religious communities to accept the relative independence for relative neutrality formula, he promised everything on condition that three non-negotiable conditions be met. First, provision of a list of Jews. Second, deliver of the monetary gold, which was at that time in the Bank of Rome. And third, the delivery of the two Holy Gospels that are in Berat. The four negotiators, representing the four religious communities, categorically refused to start negotiations if the condition to hand over the Jewish list was not withdrawn. There is something that you should know. In Albanian first constitution, Albanian Code of Honor of Middle Age, is written a paragraph that has defined the history of Albanians for centuries to follow. The house of the Albanian belonged to God and the guest. And the real word, the true meaning of the word in Albanian is not exactly the guest in the sense of the one you invite, but is the one that knocks at your door. And basically, the one that knocks at your door because he needs help. Betraying the guest, this guest, in the Code of Honor of Albania is an ultimate crime, unforgivable. So these negotiators explained to the Nazis that if they would dare to accept, to give up the Jews, they would lose all followers in their temples. So they accepted to hand over the gold, but they did not accept to hand over the Jews. Nazis tried twice more, on two occasions, April 44 and even June 44, and it's according to also the Israel Pinkas Hakayot Encyclopedia, and they arrived in the conclusion that no agreement could be reached with Albanians on the Jews. In the spring of 1942, in accordance with the special Mitrovica status, which allowed the Nazi army to enter the so-called territory liberi in Kosovo, without authorization, and I'm bringing here just an episode of many that makes me feel sad about Spielberg, because if you would have known about Albania, he would have been much more successful in telling the story of Jews, although he's very successful, of course. But listen to this. An expedition of Reich Special Forces, this disgraceful battalion of hunting Jews that was settled in Belgrade, was assigned to arrest all Jewish men living in Pristina, the actual capital of Kosovo. The city hospital director was an Albanian from Albania, Dr. Spirolito, who in my knowledge is also Righteous Among Nations, and his name is in Yad Vashem. He asked the patients to leave the hospitals, although with serious wounds, to go back home and free their beds. And he sheltered all Jewish men of the city. And in order to avoid any entry in the hospital, he surrounded the whole territorial hospital with a table, a plate, deadly virus, don't approach. But the interesting part of the story is that none of the patients who were also in very bad conditions, some of them, and none of their family members didn't go to the Nazis to say someone crazy has thrown out my father or my grandfather or my brother, to empty the beds for these people you are searching for. So the Nazis came back with no Jew in their hand. The other part of the story is the incredible contribution of the Catholic Church. And you know very well that the Catholic Church was not very good with the Jews during the Second World War. But in Albania, the Archbishop was in person engaged to provide Jews false certificates of Christian identity for saving them. So the protection and saving of Jews became an inherent Albanian virtue. Of note is the case of 4 Jews, and it is another unique case in Europe, that were arrested. And there is a letter of exchange, guess what, between the Nazis and the collaborationist Albanian government, people that have been put there by the Nazis, which wrote to the Nazi command a request to free the Jews by paying a bail of 1,500 gold Napoleons for each of them. So this was shocking to the Nazis. But there is evidence documented that the collaborationist government insisted and finally freed these Jews by paying for them a bail. But it would be wrong to claim that no Jew died in Albania during the Holocaust. There were 17 of them, but they didn't die from being deported or being spied, but they died as anti-fascist participants in the liberation war and have been declared martyrs. Albania is the only country in the Balkans where the religious composition does not have a determining or a distinguishing role in regard to identity, where 4 religious communities already live together and live together in what Pope Francis baptized when he visited, not as a religious harmony, but as a religious fraternity. And a 5th community, the Jewish one, was not an issue at all. So I strongly believe that this is not simply a beautiful page of our history, but this is a very important treasure of our national heritage. And we need to not only tell it, But we need to make sure that the young generations understand it with their mind and with their soul as part of the core of being Albanian and of being proud to be Albanian. For us, it's absolutely important to be aligned in the fight against anti-Semitism, because anti-Semitism, as we understand it, is not just about the Jews. It's about the humans. Fighting anti-Semitism is not protecting the Jews or protecting Israel. It's protecting yourself, protecting your family, your kids, and protecting your right to be respected, being a Muslim in Paris, being a Christian in a Muslim country, or having whatever religion in whatever place that you may not be part of the majority. And as I was sharing with your founder and your gracious sponsor also, I strongly believe that the biggest danger we face when it comes to anti-Semitism is not from vandals, from them who go and vandalize Jewish cemeterium or them who go and vandalize a synagogue. This is something really shameful, but it's too shameful to be really dangerous. On the contrary, this exposes the barbaric side of a certain fringe. The biggest danger comes from them who look rational, from them who try to argue and to relativize anti-Semitism. I never felt as bad as I felt when I heard some purposes from the British Labour Party in a certain moment some years ago about anti-Semitism, that made me much more scared than to hear a news about a synagogue that was vandalized or a cemetery that was vandalized. Again, because relativism can bring us back in really bad places. Vandalism is there, is exposed, is clear, and is easy.